In lesson 1 of this module, we talked about seeing your time of worship as a journey and thinking of yourself as a guide. These images help us in our preparation to consider the things we may otherwise overlook. In lesson 2, we looked at valuing the part that we each play in worship and how that should motivate us to prepare well. In lesson 3, we discussed our need to be full of the Word. We'll see some more practical ways in module 4 and 5 of how being full of the Word and doing our preparation plays out on the day during our worship leading. In this lesson, which is the last lesson of module 2, we're looking at all the things you need to be mindful of when preparing. It's going to be a full lesson, so hang in there. If we go back to our picture of a journey, all the aspects that we're talking about today are like bumps in the road and detours. You want as smooth a journey as possible for those you're leading. The aspects I'm highlighting in this lesson are things that can often trip us up if we don't consider them beforehand in preparation. Some small things, some more significant, but all playing a part in creating a meaningful worship time. So let's get stuck in. In this lesson, we're going to discover all the aspects of worship that should be considered in your preparation. This lesson is for everyone because we're covering all sorts of aspects. Some will relate more to one or two roles than others, but it's good to be mindful of each other's needs in the team. First and foremost, time with God. You should be spending time reading the Bible and listening and talking to God already. But if you're up to lead, this is even more important. Make sure you've spent time listening to what God is saying. Be in the Word and wait on God to give you something that will help lead well. Something to inspire worship and bring lasting growth in people's understanding of worship. Pray for those you're leading alongside and for those you're leading. Ask for compassion and ears to hear what God is saying. Lead out of relationship. What has God been challenging you on? What aspects of God currently delight your soul? Leading out of these revelations make your leading meaningful and effortless. And then, seasons of the church. This is the context in which we worship. It can often be helpful and more meaningful to consider what the current climate at church is. What are people talking about? What is the vision? Speak to your pastor and other team leaders. Align with these things and speak life into them. Find or write songs that help people worship in these contexts. The message. Now, the sermon and the worship don't always have to align 100%, but worship can be another way to reinforce the teaching. Can you get time with the person planning the meeting or the person speaking that day to see if there's any alignment you can bring with the sermon? Or a song that will help people grasp what's being taught? Remember, we're talking about things that you need to consider. All of what we're discussing today are potential opportunities to make your time of worship more meaningful for those gathered. And it's valuing what others in the body are also contributing. God loves blessing unity. Recently, we started a series at my church, and I was up to lead worship for the first week. I was sent a draft of the preacher's notes, and after reading it, I felt like there was a song that needed to be written based on the message. I kept it in mind and went on with my preparation, but couldn't shake the sense that we still needed a song out of this message. So I put some time aside and wrote the song. It came together really well. I told the preacher that I had written a song and that it would potentially work for a response moment after the preach. He liked the idea and we went with it, and it was a perfect way to bring everything together in a moment of worship at the end of the meeting. And that song went on to add life beyond that meeting as well. I had a choice that week. I could have gone on choosing songs that I know would work and people would enjoy, and I could have brushed off the notion of a new song and no one would have known. Sunday would have come and gone. But I knew there was something God wanted to do. I was moved with compassion. I was waiting on God. I was ready. I made the time, and I took a step of faith to write and share the song, and God was faithful. God is always looking to speak and to build His church. A theme. Consider in your preparation if there's a theme that you can see emerging. Sometimes you may get a theme in your head and you can build your song set around that theme. Sometimes one emerges based on lines in different songs. Other times a song or two may come to mind during your preparation and you build your set around those. Be careful not to make every song about the exact same theme, as it can get tired, but weave the theme throughout the set. Possibly highlight it through a scripture you read or something you pray or share during the set. As you read or pray whatever you have prepared, the theme becomes apparent to others and the song gets fresh meaning and life. And as we said above, listen for what God is saying. Zooming in on a theme can be a powerful way to teach and highlight that God is speaking to us. And then there may be an emphasis. An emphasis is similar to a theme, but I'm talking about which song or line is standing out for you. This may not be a theme throughout, but often one song just stands out for you or jumps out in your preparation, or even at rehearsal with the team. A line in a song that really catches your attention. Spend time seeking God and planning how to emphasize this on the day. Do you repeat the line? Do you say something around it? Is there a scripture that ties in that you could pray or share? God speaks during worship, and being mindful of this can be a turning point in the time of worship where God does something powerful and people are drawn into worship. Another example from a recent worship time I was leading. I had led worship in the morning and was leading again in the evening. We did the same set of songs in both meetings, but in the evening I felt to repeat the last line of the bridge in one of the songs, something we hadn't done in the morning. I repeated it 4 or 5 times and then waited a few seconds, holding that last chord I was playing. In that time of a few seconds, I asked God what the reason for repeating the line was. I had felt to do it, but do I need to say anything about it? What was God trying to say? Was singing it enough? Well, I did feel to highlight a quick lesson from the line. The line was, His praise and glory never fails. And so I said, giving God praise and glory in whatever situation we find ourselves in never fails. It's always a good choice to choose to praise God in any situation, or something along those lines. A quick moment to encourage and engage, and make the worship personal and meaningful. And someone else said a prayer that echoed the sentiments that I just shared. After that, we went on to the next song and carried on worshiping. It was an emphasis in the moment, in that meeting, but not a theme throughout the songs we sung that day. What about the songs? Many times our understanding of the extent of our preparation ends with choosing songs. That seems to be the big thing we need to do as worship leaders. Choosing songs and getting them to the team. But as we've already seen, there's so much more to consider. However, you will remember from our very first lesson of this course that a good song can do a lot of the heavy lifting for us and reduce our need to lead. Here are some things to consider around song choice. What songs are working at the moment? I'd say it's okay to do a song 3 or 4 weeks in a row if it's really working. That would tie in with the season of the church, as we mentioned. It's not about how many times you've done it before. It's whether it's still adding life. If it is, do it again this week. What songs have been done too much? You've got to be honest here. Sometimes we just choose songs that are good, but way overdone because we don't have anything else. It's a good song, but if we're honest, it's time for it to go. Find another song that shares a similar idea. Or better yet, have a go at writing one. I have another course on songwriting that you can sign up for on the website at worldclassworship.com/songwriting. Tired songs can be a great motivation for writing your own songs, but there's lots you need to consider there too. I started writing songs because at the time, it felt like we didn't have enough upbeat songs. And I've written many songs since then that have brought life to our times of worship. If that's something you feel you need to take your worship to the next level, sign up at the link that I mentioned. Does everyone on your team know these songs? This is something you need to consider. If not, can you send them a link in time for them to learn it well? What version will you send to the team as a reference? Having your team on the same page and getting them links and chords in time for them to prepare shows you value the team and you're serving them well. And they have enough time to prepare and ask for anything more. It also takes the pressure off and makes for an effortless rehearsal. How will the songs flow into one another? Consider the keys, the speed, the rhythm, time signature, and themes. This is a big one. I've found so many worship leaders don't consider this enough. Remember, we're creating as smooth a journey as possible. Often a simple change in the order of songs can make a big difference. We'll look more at this in the next modules about practicing and participation, and I've got some resources for you there around songs, so do check those out when we get there. Do you have enough or too many songs for the time allocated and for everything that's happening in the service that day? Consider what else is happening. Do you need a song for communion or in response to the preach? If there's only time for 3 songs this week, don't send the band 6 to prepare. It seems obvious, but a simple thing like that can save a lot of time and focus. Be prepared for all the aspects of the meeting that you're involved with, so that you don't repeat songs unnecessarily. Remember, we're wanting to maximize participation and to be inspiring and meaningfully connect with people. Other aspects of the meeting can be a way to do that. Then there's tempo. Tempo really has the ability to slow you down. If you do a song too fast, everyone will feel exhausted trying to keep up. If you do it too slow, it lacks energy. Going from a fast song to a much slower song or vice versa can be tricky. Consider the speed of the songs you've chosen. How well do they transition from one to another? Do you need to speed up one or slow one down to create a smoother journey without destroying the song? Will switching song order prevent tempo tripping you up? How open are the team to playing with the click track to ensure the right speed? I know for some people, click is a dirty 4-letter word in worship, but it can be a huge help if your timing is all over the park. You can waste a lot of time at rehearsal on a simple thing like tempo because you end up feeling like the song isn't working, but actually you're just playing it too fast or too slow and draining the life out of it. I have a resource for you on this in the next module that explains tempo, rhythm, and how using them correctly makes all the difference, no matter how big or small your band is. I highly recommend you check that out in the next module. So many issues in a song can be solved with rhythm and tempo. I'll talk more about that there because here I just want to highlight the things you need to be mindful of that can easily trip us up. Then there's arrangement. Arrangement is the way the song is played with the instruments that you have. Do your song choices work with the band that you have? What would it take to make it work? Who will play what and when? Does anything need to be arranged differently based on your band or requirements for the day? Considering this up front can save you so much time at rehearsal and make for a more engaging time of worship. If you're not musical, you may need to delegate this one, or sit with your music director or a stronger musician on the team. Arranging a song to work with your band helps us present the song well and makes it easy for people to join in. What about keys? Do the key signatures of the song work well together? Stay in the same key for a couple of songs if you can. If the songs are in different keys, how will you transition? It's often more energetic and natural to work your way up the keys if you can, but not serious if you've considered a good way to transition. Can everyone sing the song in the key that you've chosen? A male lead will normally sing in a different key to a female lead. Being mindful of this in your preparation is helpful because it can save you a lot of time at rehearsal and make it easier for people to participate. You may have to have more than one set of chords available, or make time to transpose the song with the band at rehearsal. It may change which reference track you send out. If you're confident your team can jump between keys easily, you may be okay, but remember the band has parts to learn as well, which can throw them if we're suddenly changing keys. Make the journey as smooth as possible. Take time to try the songs in the keys that you want to do them in before rehearsal with the band. You'll be thankful you did, and so will your team. I have a resource for you on this to the right of the video that just explains some of the terminology around keys and scales and notes, and this can be very helpful when you're deciding on the keys and communicating with the rest of the band. This may all sound like I'm giving you a lot more work to do, possibly, but it may just be a case of working smarter. But the main point here is to be mindful of these things, anticipating upfront how songs will work best, and being mindful of the rest of the team will save you time in the long run. Hang in there, we've covered a lot already, but we're almost at the end. Gaps. What do I mean by gaps? Well, every change between songs is a gap in the set unless you plan it not to be. Where are the gaps in your set? Reduce the gaps to as few as possible and then plan to do something in the gaps that you can't reduce further. This isn't a hard and fast rule, but it's amazing how effective it is to reduce the amount of start-stop moments in the set. It may just be as simple as keeping the tempo or the key the same. It may be ensuring someone on the team is always playing. A pad on the keys, for example, just softens the gaps between songs. Unnecessary and prolonged silence can distract people and make them feel uneasy. We'll cover more ways to reduce the gaps in the next modules, but be aware of them in your preparation and use rehearsal with the team to practice flowing between the songs. To clarify, a gap is not space. You can create space for something to happen, or even silence to wait on God or for a prayer. And we need to be accommodating of those other things that are required for the meeting to work, like communion or prayer time or baptism. But even then, consider what you'll do and make sure everyone is on the same page beforehand. Discuss it with the meeting leader as well. A gap is an unnecessary and distracting pause or silence that adds no benefit or meaning to the time of worship that could have been avoided. There we go, that's my definition. For example, you end song 1 nice and big praise moment, and then there's 5 seconds of silence while the song leader tries to get the drummer's attention to start counting the next song. And then the drummer gives 4 counts for the band to come in. Lots of energy and focus can be lost in that time. I think you know what I'm talking about. We'll look at ways to solve that later in the course. But that brings me to my next point, intros and endings. How will each song start and how will they end? Don't assume everybody knows. Always make intros and endings clear and confident. It doesn't have to always be loud, just clear. Who or what instrument will start the song and how? Are we all coming in together? What chord will we end on? It's simple, but choosing the right chord to land a song can open up a time of worship or prayer. Music plays a powerful part in guiding people. And one of the resources I have for you in the next module I cover the main options for ending a song and what the result would be for each. It's simple but effective, and it will add a lot of value to your worship times. Don't just think of each song in isolation, but as a set of 4 or 5 songs. This applies musically and spiritually. How will you start and end? How will you use the gaps to assist worship and turn people's focus to God? Order of songs. Sometimes a simple change like swapping 2 songs around in the set can create a much better flow, or help highlight a key teaching, or create a moment of worship that would otherwise be diluted. There are a number of factors that can influence the order you play your songs in, and a variety of ways that you can arrange them based on what you're trying to achieve. Consider how people will be feeling on the journey and where you're taking them when deciding the order of your songs. The Song Choice Framework resource from an earlier lesson gives some guidelines on this. And then, what will you say? Assume you'll say something every time you're leading. Consider the team. Consider practice. Consider Sunday. What will you share with the team this week? What is one thing you could share or pray or read this week that will take people further on the greater journey of worship? We'll look at some how-tos in the following modules, but use every opportunity to teach and inspire. It doesn't have to be long at all, just meaningful and inspiring. Remember, you always have the option not to share if you feel you shouldn't, or the meeting goes in a different direction. But be prepared with something. Proverbs 15 verse 23 says, "A person finds joy in giving an apt reply." How good is a timely word? When will you say it? When would be the best time to share what you feel God is wanting to say? Which song best helps convey the message? What will happen after you share? Will we go back into the song or into a part of the song? What are the band doing while you're sharing? Will they play the chorus chords? Is it just the guitar playing? These are small things that can help the message get across clearly, or small things that can be a distraction. Discuss what the team should do when you're sharing something. Make it a go-to thing. Like if ever a leader is talking or someone is sharing, play X at X volume as a default. Is a very helpful way to ensure the team knows where to take it. And finally, include others. Tell the band what you're thinking. Discuss the gaps, work on intros and endings, and tell them what and when you plan to share. Have someone else on the team share something. This isn't just about filling them in on your plan. It's reminding the team to be aware and ready to go where God may lead. This is not just about getting through a few songs, it's about leading people. And culture is like clay. You mold it slowly, changing small parts at a time. So we're always communicating values and how-tos that shape the way things are done. Okay, phew. We made it to the end of all those. Now if you're sitting there thinking you can't remember all those points, don't fear. I have you covered. I've summarized this in a preparation checklist that you can download under the downloads to the right of this video. So in this lesson we've covered all the small things and some big things that can trip us up in worship if we're not prepared. And you may have thought of some others as you've been listening. That's okay. Once you're aware of the need to prepare and mindful of these small details that make a big difference, you become aware of all the factors at work during worship. The more you prepare for each of these, the less time you'll spend on reworking and getting people on the same page, and the more time you'll have to focus on God and on worshiping and on leading others in worship. The personal application for us: which of these areas stood out for you as one that you battle with or were unaware of? And awareness is often the biggest step. You need to work out your own requirements, but these are things I've found trip so many worship leaders up, and they're all solvable with a bit of preparation. Use your workbook to write down why you battle with this area and how you can be more prepared. Is it more time you need, or help from someone else on the team that's perhaps more musical? This can be a great opportunity for you to grow as a leader and to grow your team by getting them involved in the preparation as well. Then consider all your requirements for a worship time. How can you best serve those on your team in your preparation? You may want to get feedback from your team on this and use some of the time at rehearsal to discuss it. Use the preparation checklist as a guide on things to consider and your workbook to record your answers. Don't forget to check out the resources related to this lesson to the right of this video in your members area. We're on to Module 3 next. We're going to discuss making your rehearsals focused, fun, and full of life.